All right, people. So I want to talk about the truth about Trump's. It's been called a Muslim ban in the media by a lot of people. It's not a Muslim ban, you fucking retards. He didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to ban all Muslims from these 7 countries." No, he said he's going to, he's going to restrict the travels of everybody from those countries. So it's not a Muslim ban. I would call it more of like a travel ban, travel restrictions. I don't know. But it's not a Muslim. That's just a way. That's fake news right there at its best, because it doesn't specifically target Muslims. Now you'll hear, oh, the people from those countries are mostly Muslim. That's where most Muslims are in those 7 countries. Well, actually, it only affects, I think it was about 10% of the Muslims worldwide, because he didn't ban it from other countries like Saudi Arabia and other countries like that. So it's not a Muslim ban. So that's totally inaccurate when the media says it is. So I actually went through and read the executive order, because you see a lot of fear mongering and hypocrisy coming out of the mainstream media right now. So I actually went through and read it. It took me only about 5 minutes, but people are too busy, watching Kim Kardashian's ass or Bruce Jenner getting his dick chopped off to actually read it. So I actually read it. So it talked about strengthening visa screening, making sure nobody slips through the cracks. Very, very logical thing there. It talked about, when we are bringing in refugees to the country, having, sit down interviews with these people, screening them very rigorously. I think a great idea too is to hook them up to a lie detector and ask them, are you a violent person? Do you agree with throwing gays off buildings, shit like that? Or are you going to do that? Do you agree with ISIS in any way, shape, or form? Hook them up to a lie detector. Now, I know those things aren't 100% accurate, but they could definitely help. Also, it talked about the ban from countries. Like I said, it wasn't just on Muslim. It was for everybody. It's not just a Muslim ban. And also too, I see a lot of people, talking about, oh, sports teams might not be able to get in. This scientists from Iran won't be able to get into the U.S. or some shit, like some Iranian, very smart person or whatever. In the executive order, you dumb fucks, who, like I said, didn't have the energy to read the actual order, or just omitted it because it didn't agree with their agenda. It said there is a case-by-case basis to admit people. So, like, for example, sports teams, big scientists, shit like that. So you dumb fucks, again, they twist things, that people who just get their news from Facebook or shit like that won't actually see that. And then also you dumb fucks, you fucking liars in the mainstream media. It said in there that there were 50,000 refugees is the limit that they're going to accept into the U.S. So they're still going to accept many thousands of refugees into the U.S., which is the 50,000 number. Is just about the same amount Bush and Obama admitted per year too. So it's just total lies from the mainstream media. So yeah, I want to talk about some of the things that people are saying about this. First off, they're saying, oh, this is something unprecedented in American history. This totally goes against what we do as Americans. First, it's been done throughout history. Even Obama's done it. He's restricted the travel of countries. FDR did it with the Jewish immigrants during World War II. Jimmy Carter did it with Iran. Many Democrats have done the same fucking thing during wartime. And we're basically at war with ISIS right now, so why wouldn't we do the same thing? Where the extremists are, we restrict the travel. It's not permanent either. It's only 90 days. That's not another thing I want to add. I also see some people saying not letting them in will lead them to attack and make them all mad. Well, if something like that's going to lead them to attack, why would we want those kind of people in our country in the first place? Another argument is, refugees from these countries haven't committed terror attacks. Well, that's because we haven't let them in vast amounts like we've seen in Europe. In Europe, where they let them in vast amounts, we have seen the consequences of that. In France, there's been many attacks. In Turkey, there's been many. In many places in Europe, there's been a lot of because in Europe, in America, like we've only let in like 10,000 Syrian refugees. In Europe, they let them in by the hundreds of thousands, and we see the consequences of that. So luckily, we haven't let in as many as Europe, but I mean, we've still seen some of the consequences, like the Syrian refugee or the Somalian refugee who attacked Ohio State earlier this year. But I mean, would you really be comfortable with an unvetted Somalian refugee living by your house? And even if they do claim, oh, we could vet them, really, how the fuck do you vet somebody from Somalia? I mean, I'm really wondering about that. Oh, it's a vigorous process. We go through a vigorous process. Fuck that. I'm not really confident in the Somalian government providing us with legitimate information. I mean, do they even have a government in Somalia? I'm pretty sure they're in anarchy right now. So, I mean, would you really be comfortable with a Somalian refugee moving in next door to you? Because I wouldn't. So yeah, I'm just trying to separate fact from fiction here, because there's a lot of fiction, with the mainstream media reporting on this, because it's not a Muslim ban. It's not. I mean, I know I've already talked about that, but it's just so important for people to understand the truth that it's not a Muslim ban, that it doesn't target Muslims specifically. And the only reason it talks about, or the only reason the countries listed in here are, predominantly Muslim countries, or countries where there are a lot of Muslims, is because wherever Muslims are, there's problems. It's a clusterfuck. Because many Muslims are violent people. It's just a fact that people don't like to admit, that the religion of Muslims, or of Islam, is more violent than any other religion worldwide, or big religion worldwide. Like Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity. Islam is way more violent, way more radical than any other religion, on the face of this planet. And people will be like, oh, it's only ISIS who's violent, which is a small percentage of Muslims. No. If you look at some of the polls done by Pew Research and other reputable polling companies about viewpoints of Muslims living abroad in places like Egypt, in places like Iran or Turkey or any really predominantly Muslim country, majority Muslim country, you will find that a large percentage of them, in many cases over 50%, support killing people who leave the religion, support killing gays. Many have a favorable view of ISIS, or a favorable view of violent attacks against the West. Shit like that. So why would we want to bring those kind of people into America? Even if they aren't violent, why would we want to bring the people with those kind of viewpoints into America? It's just not a good idea, people. It's a recipe for disaster. It really is. So yeah, like I said, just want to separate fact from fiction here, because there's a lot of fiction floating around in the mainstream media right now. So it's not like I said, it is not a travel ban, and like I said, or it's not a Muslim ban. And like I said, wherever Muslims go, there's problems. I mean, look at the way that these Muslim countries treat their citizens, like women. If the women get raped, or have or do like things that aren't even illegal here, they get stoned. Like think about that. If a woman gets raped, I mean, she's the one who gets in trouble. And I want to talk about another thing in the executive order too. It says, in order to protect, I'm reading right from it now. In order to protect Americans, the United States must ensure that those admitted to this country do not bear hostile attitudes towards it and its founding principles, like, liberty, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, shit like that. Very logical. The United States cannot and should not admit those who do not support the Constitution, again, logical, or those who would place violent ideologies over American law. Very logical, once again. In addition, the United States should not admit those who engage, this is the one I want to talk about, who engage in acts of bigotry or hatred, like honor killings, other forms of violence against women, or the persecution of those who practice religions different from their own, or those who oppose Americans of any race, gender, or sexual orientation. Did you hear what I just said to you? Let me read that again. Or who oppose or Americans of any race, gender, or sexual orientation. Example, if you're a fucking lesbian, if you're a transgendered. So Trump is putting in his executive order that if, we're bringing in people who, oppose LGBT community, that he's not going to let those people in. But yet they claim he's anti-LGBT, he's anti, gay marriage. Well, then why was that in the fucking executive order then, you hypocrites? So like I said, just trying to separate fact from fiction, and I felt I did a really good job of that in this article. I felt I countered the points of the people who oppose this. So I mean, if you have any other opposition to this article, really, or this executive order, please comment it in the section below, because I would very gladly respond to it. I think this travel ban is very common sense. It's what's been done throughout history when we are at war or there's an enemy of us, in a different country. So I would really like to hear somebody's viewpoint of somebody who supports this or doesn't support this. So there you go, people.